Hey guys, I hope you're interested in kimchi like I am. This is an easy recipe that I drafted, but just a few thoughts before we get involved. This is a simpler, easier version. Normally, this calls for glutinous rice porridge to be made for the kimchi paste. Seafood's also normally used. However, there are folks who can't digest starches. Some are diabetic, some can't handle the strong smell. They may be even allergic to the seafood, or they just can't find the items in the area. So remember, I'm a non conforming chef. I don't listen to food purists. There are many ways to skinning a cat. And a sidebar note, if you are someone with an allergy to seafood or you are vegan, simply omit the fish sauce. You can use soy sauce or tamari in its place. Now, this does use Korean ingredients such as gochujang and gochugaru. So, no true replacements. Don't even bother asking because you're just not going to get the same flavor. There's nothing out there. Your spice tolerance is dictated only by what you can handle. So trust your palate, people. So here's a list. You're going to want to pause the video. I give a list of items that I use when I'm making kimchi, when I'm prepping it, and then, of course, the body of the vegetable recipe, and, of course, the approximates. That's the kimchi sauce. This is scaled down. I usually have a double recipe of this. So I brought this down by half, so it's a lot more manageable. And as usual, you gotta prep everything ahead of time. Now, I like to take a look at the outer leaves. I like to inspect them and remove anything that even looks questionable. Sometimes it might be slightly wilted, and that's usually because of temperature changes. You figure this stuff is in transit from distribution to local stores, and it sits on the truck until it comes over to the display. So I'm just removing a few of the outer layers, and I'm actually saving them for future stock making. They're just not fit for what I'm doing for kimchi, but they'd make great flavor enhancement for a vegetable stock. And as you see here, we're doing 1 to 1.5 inch cuts. Ultimately, we want to go through this and see if there's any dirt that's got to be removed because, hey, it grows outside. I certainly want to take a look and see if anything needs to be rinsed out, but I still rinse it. It nice and crispy, so I know I don't have any issues with the quality of this. I actually have a bowl off to my right that I've been moving this stuff over. Now, we do want to continue slicing the rest of this. The only thing I do different is I don't use the butt of the Napa cabbage. I say this because now normally they remove the root, which is very small. It's only a couple inches. However, so I find that the bottom or the butt of the Napa cabbage sometimes can be too hardy and too bitter. I don't like the flavor of it after it hits the kimchi paste. It's just nasty. It gets wicked gnarly. So here we're doing the last slice. And I need to take a look at that root. Is it something I want to use? Not really. I'm going to put that in my bag. We're going to shove it in the freezer for future stock making. It's just a little too firm for my taste. So now we just got to move everything to a big mixing bowl. I'm talking big. Regular household bowls are not just going to cut it. I'm telling you right now. You can, of course, cut this recipe in half if you want for trying out purposes, but yeah, for 2 heads, you need a big bowl. So break up your sliced cuts. It's just going to fall apart nice and easy. This is just so everything is not clumped together because eventually we're going to hit this with a salty brine. Because the key element here, we want to go and do the first wilting. So I'm just going through and making sure everything is broken up. And while I'm doing that, I'm taking a look at some of these pieces. I certainly want to get that bowl empty because now I got to put a lining of kosher salt. I probably use about a 1/4 cup at the bottom. And now I'm going to put some of that cabbage right in the bowl. And as I get a layer, eventually I need to put more kosher salt. Now, I did a rough estimate. For 2 large Napa cabbages, I used about 1.5 cups of kosher salt in total. I want to make sure all the leaves are getting hit with salt. And what will end up happening is it's going to help draw out moisture from that cabbage. Now, as you can see, there's some extra pieces here we need to break up. It's perfectly fine. We're actually going to split that up. And once we have hit this with more salt, we actually are going to hit it with some water. If you live in a community where the water is highly mineralized, like your community has added a crap ton of stuff to it, I'm not really sure how well it's going to come out for you. You might have a funky flavor in the fermenting process, so you may want to go to bottled water. I guess basically if the sink water tastes funny, you might want to go and use bottled water. Where I live, I haven't seen any issues, which is a shock. Uh, so after we've split this, we're hitting it with more salt. We're going to hit it with some water. And the thing we have to do is it has to sit overnight. And we want the cabbage to be almost completely immersed. We're going to actually like press it down. Sometimes I'll use a platter-sized plate to put on top, and I'll put a weight on it because I want everything to get fermented overnight, the wilting process at least to start. And the napa does need to be wet to do this. Some folks will just do the salt. I like the wet brine myself. I find it gets it better coating. So as you can see, we're doing that salting on the top. And we're going to work that into this bowl. And then ultimately, a little bit more water. All in all, I think the prep work itself for the cabbage, 15-20 minutes. It wasn't anything substantial. Fairly easy. Anyone can do this, really. Now, we have to look at the extras. Prep the rest of the vegetables. You want your Korean chives. You want some carrots, scallions, ginger, and garlic. I pre-chopped up myself. It's fresher. It's so much better. And daikon threads. Do you need all of that? You don't, but it makes it better. So by the next day, that nap is wilted. You want to keep 1 cup of the brine, though. Drain the rest of it. Get yourself a nice big colander. Drain what you can, and then put that colander fill into a bowl because you're going to still see some drainage. You can go ahead and press down on that if you want. You can squeeze some of it if you want, or just let it do its own thing. The brine that comes out of that is going to be discarded. So now, with the prep vegetables, we're going to attack that kimchi sauce. Use gloves, people. I'm telling you right now, if you got a cut, you're going to feel it. You're going to know you have a cut. So here, I'm actually just mixing everything up from the approximate section of the recipe. I want to break up any clumps of the Korean pepper flakes. Sometimes that happens. Just depends on humidity in your kitchen. So in mixing this up, you see how it becomes a nice thin paste consistency. I'm actually doing an extra step in this video. I doubled my kimchi. So what you're seeing, I did a first batch of the kimchi sauce, and this is the second. And how bright red it is. It's actually beautiful. So we're just going to mix this in. You don't have to be too rough, but you certainly don't want to be gentle. You want to get everything coated. So now, when we have everything wrapped up, we want to get this into clean, sterilized jars or food-grade containers. Pack your kimchi. You want to pat down to get any air out of the mixture. Now, if you have a pan like this one, let it sit on your counter for the next few days. By leaving the lids on top in only a jar, the air bubbles will come out of your kimchi. It's going to prevent a colorful mess on your countertops. After about 3 days, you're going to start seeing seepage into that pan. That's when you want to tighten the lid, rinse the jar under cool water to clean it, and put it in your fridge. It gets better and funkier with age. So kimchi being fermented food, You can start eating this right away if you want, or let it age in your fridge for optimal flavor development. As it gets older, it intensifies. Use it for soups, stews, eggs, noodles, rice, or eat it as is. It will be good for many months. And thanks so much for joining me. Have yourself a good one. Hey guys, I hope you're interested in kimchi like I am. This is an easy recipe that I drafted, but just a few thoughts before we get involved. This is a simpler, easier version.